Previously, we built this nuclear blueprint, which allows us to produce enough fuel rods per minute with a single click to run 5 nuclear power plants, or 10 if you summer sloop them. But what to do with the 50 waste per minute? Well, today we are breaking down how to build this blueprint, which produces plutonium fuel rods with that, which will allow you to sink it in the awesome sink or use it in more nuclear power plants. Let's get into it. And I've even made it so that we can walk around this as well, should you wish. Whether you want to go to the bottom floor or all the way to the top floor here. So there's a lot for us to take in today. I won't show you necessarily how to do all of the aesthetic design elements that I've done in this, but certainly I will show you how to build this whole facility. So let's get to the drawing board. I should also mention before we get started, in case you didn't realize, we are using the Mark III blueprint designer. So this is the largest one that's available to us. I did try and fit it all into a Mark II, but I think it's going to be a really tight squeeze given we need another 6 assemblers and also a handful of constructors and 2 blenders inside this on top of what we've already got. So don't think it's doable. Even looking over the first design that we had for this, you can see it's really tight thanks to the sheer size of the particle accelerator, which is why we actually feature it in this build and try and make a thing out of it. Surprisingly, I think this is the first blueprint that we've used without any alternate recipes in use for this. And the reason that I haven't gone for the alternate plutonium fuel rod recipes is it just adds to the amount of different machinery we need. I think there's an extra blender that we need to fit in, as well as extra manufacturers, and that just doesn't work with a compact build. So as such, we have gone with the vanilla recipe, and you will need the subsequent resources. First off, 50 uranium waste. This comes from running our previous blueprint, which provides 1 uranium fuel rod per minute. If you double that up using summer sloop, then you will have to use 2 of these in order to produce the plutonium fuel rods that you want. We're also going to be taking in 5 iron plates per minute for this build, 12.5 aluminium ingots or aluminum ingots, 6 caterium ingots per minute, 43.167, you can just round this up to 60, it really doesn't matter too much. Copper ingots per minute, 30 concrete, 25 silica, and finally 28.125 steel ingots. Just do 30, it's fine. It doesn't matter if the lines going in are saturated, providing you're using up that uranium waste. On top of that, we're going to need 60 nitrogen per minute and 15 water per minute. However, with the water, we're going to use 15 water in the sulfuric acid refinery, and then we're going to recycle that water around the build. So we will only need an additional 15 water per minute rather than 30. This does mean that your water extractor is first going to buffer this little pipe full of water first, and then you can delete it. Once it's fully deleted, it will be fine. And a note on water, if we jump inside really quickly, this red pipe is the one that's going to feed the sulfuric acid refinery first of all. So once you have got the water in this pipe and it has buffered, I'm just going to show you here, once this is full, you're going to delete this red pipe, and then we're going to use this system here to create a pumpless system so that we don't need to worry about head lift, so that we can get the water that's coming from here as waste and pump that, or not pump it, into the refinery here. I will explain this system in a moment, but first we need to get through the build. So let's break it down into 3 floors. Now at this point we have the 4 slices. So we have the base floor here. Don't worry, I will show you each of these individually in a moment. The bottom floor including the refinery, the mid floor And then finally, we have the top floor here. Now, I know this is looking very complicated. There is a lot going on, so we are going to take our time breaking all of this down. In the base floor, we start off with the particle accelerator that is producing the plutonium pellets. Then the assembler above that is producing the plutonium cells. Can't remember quite the right name for it. It's something cells. Then we have the nitric acid in the top right blender, followed by the fissile uranium in the blender beneath. So that's everything that happens on the base floor. Above the uranium waste balancer from the previous floor, we have the sulfuric acid refinery. That is in the bottom right hand corner here, and we're going to move ahead from this point. Oh, also you can see the piping for the water. The red part is the part that you will delete after the buffer's full, and then the blue part, the infrastructure for the pipes that you'll be using. In this midsection, we are producing the plutonium fuel rods. That's what's in the manufacturer there. We also have above that the heat sink assembler, and above that one we have the electromagnetic control rod assembler with the deuterium quick wire being produced in the constructor to the left of the grid. And then finally on the top floor, we have, starting in the lower left hand section, two constructors. The first one on the left is the steel pipe constructor. Then we have the steel beam constructor to the right of it. Above these, the top left-hand assembler is producing stators, and the one to the right of that is producing the AI limiters. And in the top right-hand corner, we have another assembler that is producing the alclad aluminum sheets. And below them, we have two more constructors. One is producing copper sheets, and the one below is producing the copper wire. And you will need for this build as well two power shards. We've got one that's being used in the copper sheet constructed at 150% clock speed, and just on top of that, going back to the base level, the assembler in the top left, which is producing the encased plutonium cells, that is overclocked to 150% as well. So that's where the other power shard is. Anyway, with that in mind, let's start breaking down the build. As a heads up, I will be flying for this build, and we are going to start off with placing the foundations across the whole of the grid. If you aren't using advanced game settings to fly, you can use a hover pack just to give you a top-down view. It should make it a little bit easier to set all of this up. So we're going to, once we've done this, plot out where all of our resources are going to be entering the facility from. And the first section that we need to start off with is over in the top left-hand corner. So this is going to be a single conveyor wall hole, and then next to it we're going to place a double conveyor wall hole. At the same time, we're going to place a 3 conveyor wall just in the corner as well. This is where the majority of our resources are going to enter in from. We're also going to place a 1 floor hole wall here, one conveyor wall hole, and then from here I am going to add 1 whole wall there, and then for this one I'm just going to press H, and we're going to hold control while we do this, and we're just going to bring it in 1/2 meter and run that across 2 pieces. You can also color this differently if you want. I think I've used that for this section. Next, we're going to add some windows because we do want to show this off and also have a little bit of light coming in. So for this, I'm running 4 frame windows followed by 2 walls, and then we're going to place another 2 walls. In fact, no, we're going to do 1 followed by our conveyor wall hole. The reason is this is where we're going to be receiving our uranium waste. Next, run the wall all the way across, and then I'm going to display the particle accelerator with a window, but I will do that on the second floor. So we'll just fill that in, then add the windows on top. At this point, we have the walls placed for the lower level. So let's get started with the buildables. The first one is the biggest one, the particle accelerator. So we're going to make sure that we place that facing the lower left section. And you want to be able to run a conveyor all the way across this wall. So it should be this position here. In fact, we can go an inch closer. There we go. So in straight mode, you can run this all the way along, or I'm just running it in default mode at the moment. With the particle accelerator placed, we're now going to place our assembler. This is going to be placed, just snap it in here, so that it is just in front of this. So you are going to have an elevator that comes up here. It will clip ever so slightly, but apart from that, it should be fine. You want to make sure that this middle input here is in line with the left input for the assembler, though we're not going to use that one. The input for this is actually going to be this one here. This is going to be our concrete, and you need 30 concrete per minute coming into this. And this is for our plutonium, encased plutonium cells. Remember, this is going to be overclocked to 150. So you can see we've got the 30 concrete there, and we need 15 plutonium pellets. So you can see this is going to be at 50% clock speed. So we get those 15 plutonium pellets, and that's going to run all the way into this assembler here. Next, we are going to place our first blender. This is for the nitric acid. And for this, you're going to want to make sure that your blender is just over the line here. And you want the top right-hand input in line with this wall. Now for this, we do need to clock this at 50% clock speed. So we've got 15 water, which will be coming into the system, 5 iron plates from this section here, and 60 nitrogen. So whilst we're here, we're also going to add our holes for the pipes. This pipe hole is going to be for the nitrogen. Really, you can do this either way you prefer. I just find it easier to do it this way. And then we have our water going into this one. Because we will need to bring the water across to the refinery, it'll probably be around here. We'll get to that shortly. That's why I have the water on the same side as one another. So with this now prepped, we're going to place our next blender. This one is going to be facing the particle accelerator. And this is going to be quite tight. So we're actually going to move it ever so slightly out of alignment with this one, even though they're on a different angle, rotation. And from here, we're going to make sure that our output here is over this section here, this little joint between from this line, the third and fourth columns foundation. This will go up and join with the water pipe heading to the refinery. And this one here is going to feed into this input here. The way that we do that, we're going to, for this, grab our conveyor lift, and you're going to need to nudge it into position. So press H, and then you want it flush, like so. Bring it up one, and then have it facing the particle accelerator. And we'll know if this isn't in the right position because, shortly you're going to see it won't align. I was asked this in stream, how to make sure that these are connected. If you're looking at them highlighted, you can hear that little bleep when something snapped to it. So once you've clicked it once, you want to point at the other item, whether it's the elevator or the blender. For this one, it's the elevator, and you can hear that snap. Just place it once more, they're connected. We're also going to do it here as well. And you once again need to nudge it into place. Once it's aligned, we're going to press R to swap the inputs and outputs. We're going to connect this with a Mark 1 pipe, belt. And then we're going to double click this so that that's connected. So we now know that the blender's output is connected to the particle accelerator. We're going to select the non-fissile uranium. So the non-fissile uranium is heading straight into here. And then we have water, which will be from this output going into the refinery. The other thing that we need to do while we're here actually is to sort out the uranium waste. So for this, we're going to grab a splitter and we're going to place it in line with the particle accelerator's input. And then next to this, we're going to place another splitter. And then behind this, in the other direction, we're going to have our merger. And the merger is going to be facing the opposite direction. From here, we can connect these up. We only need to use a Mark 1 conveyor because we're only going to be transporting 50 uranium waste per minute. If it doesn't connect with a straight belt, do not worry, just press R and go into your default mode. And here you can see we're splitting this so that we've got quarter going to the particle accelerator and then 3/4 across to the non-fissile blender. However, in this position, we are going to connect this to the second conveyor input. The reason for this is because I forgot that this needs to be for silica. So please forgive me. Your silica is going to enter the facility from here and head straight in to the blender. We'll bring this across. And then we can snap the elevator directly to the input and run the conveyor across. Next, we need to add the nitric acid and the sulfuric acid. The nitric acid is going to be easy enough. We're just going to run the nitric acid down here like so, and then the sulfuric acid is going to enter in this section. So that there is the first floor. That's everything we need to know. We will do the water next and the sulfuric acid refinery. For the placement of the refinery, you're going to grab your foundation. We're going to use a 1 meter foundation for this, and we're going to just run it across 3. You can run it 4 meters if you like, and then we're going to have a half foundation, which we're also going to run next to there as well. At this point, we can grab our refinery, and we're going to want to nudge this so that it's about here. So you're going to want the ladder of your refinery in line with the little middle section at the basic wall here. Then with that, we can run the water into this pipe. I will color these for you for the ease of explanation. We'll get back to that in a moment. And then from here, we're going to place a temporary foundation here, and we're going to grab the sulfuric acid pipe, and we're going to just connect these up. You can do this how you want. I'm pretty happy with that. Let's give it a color so you know what it is. And then the refinery will be sulfuric acid, and you want it at a total clock speed so that it's running at 30% and your output is 15 sulfuric acid per minute. As you can see, that's what we need here. The sulfur will be running, we're going to need a Mark 1 along this line here. And we're going to run this all the way across to our elevator, which will be coming from this one here. We'll just bring this up like so, and you can see it's just above the assembler. You can delete these afterwards. And then we have the fun bit, which is going to be your water. Now the water in this position is going to come from the opposite wall. I want to say that's the right there. I'm just going to fly back here and see that it's straight, which looks straight to me. And then the next thing that we need to do is to add a joint down here so that we can snap this. If we don't have the joint, almost always we can't snap this to it. So place that down, and then, there you go. We've lost the snapping point. So I'm going to have to do this one by eye. We're going to face it vertically, and then just across from here, probably about in line with the other edge of the foundation. I'm going to place another one, and we're going to place a third one over here. It doesn't actually matter where you place this one, as long as it's along the straight point, and it's after this section, because what we're going to do is place the pipe across, and then from here we're going to add another pipe. We'll delete this now, and then from here, I know it's a lot of work, but trust me, it's important to create this. The reason that we're doing this is you can see here the water is going to have to come up about 12 meters, and the blender only has a head lift of 10 meters. So to save us placing down a pump in this position, which you could do, we are going to use head lift. It's a little bit of a bug. Don't know if it'll get patched out, but until then, I don't see them patching it. We are going to do this. So it's essentially the water tower system. So what we're going to do is place a valve facing down into this system. And we're then going to limit the valve so that no water can get through. Thus the water will pool to this point, stop entering, but still give the system the head lift of this height. It does mean that when we're first filling up this pipe, we are going to have to use a pump to fill this section, but afterwards you can delete this and that, and the system will run on its own. But it's imperative for this that the valve is set to 0. If the water starts coming out, because you've set it to 1 or haven't set it, this is going to empty, and then once it's emptied, the blender isn't going to be able to receive the head lift for this system. And the reason that we have to do it 2 pieces high, like double the height, is because if you do it half the height, it's very difficult to place this section down. And so you end up having to place it along the horizontal piece, and then the water just trickles out the other side. So that is why we've done this. Hopefully that makes sense. We will be covering water mechanics or liquid mechanics in a later video, and how you can game the system to your own advantage. Right, whilst we're here, let's also paint this red so we all remember to delete this. And from here, I think we're ready to go on to the next floor. But while we're at it, let's quickly talk about the resources that we have going up to which floor. You know what, it's just easier to show you from here. So here we have the sulfur on the right input that we just mentioned, followed by Caterium in the middle and the aluminium on the left. Then on the other side, we have the concrete on the right, followed by steel, and then the copper ingots. We then have the water that needs to be buffered in the refinery, which is the red pipe hole. We then have water in the next pipe hole, nitrogen in the one to the left of that, and then the 5 iron plates per minute in the left corner. Now facing the edge with the blenders, we have the 15 silica entering the facility in the second foundation to the left in the center. And the only other thing I think we should mention is, obviously the uranium waste. So we have the uranium waste in the bottom right-hand corner where we were building, where we did the balancer. And then we also have above this, which we'll talk about shortly, the plutonium fuel rod output, which is in the third foundation to the left. And in case you're wondering, we have the entrance to the facility. It's on the third floor. So the floor that we've just built, just here above the particle accelerator. So this is the same floor as the one with the sulfuric acid refinery. We're now ready to go up to the next floor. So in vertical mode, we're going to go up 10 meters. So that's 2 4-meter foundations and then a 2-meter foundation, and then delete the 4-meter foundations. And then from here, we're going to zoop to the end and back for the section with the refinery. If you want, you do not need to have this foundation here. If you don't like the clipping, you don't need to have it. You can just remove it and have it an open space. We'll be clipping into this side. We'll also place our 4-meter foundation there. We're going to place another one just here and here. So we are clipping ever so slightly into the particle accelerator. Next, we're going to grab our half foundations, and they're going to be all the way along the particle accelerator, with the exception of the bottom here, which is a 4-meter foundation once again. At this point, I'm going to add our doorway. This is more of a placeholder for now. We won't do the, I suppose we can do the first line, the catwalk. It's gonna run across here. We'll have a catwalk intersection followed by a single, and we can just head on to the ground floor from there. The next section, we will actually run this up across here and then back on itself, but we don't need to worry about that just yet, as it would be nice to cover the placement first. I'm just going to really quickly go around with the walls as well. I want to make sure that we've got everything set up. And for this floor where we've got the 2-meter foundation, I actually, instead of using the concrete and the 4-meter one, I'm going to go with the normal basic wall. I think it's a nice little way to break up the look of the facility. Just gonna run this all the way around. I do add lighting in my version of the blueprint, just to accentuate the look of parts of the build. For example, here, we're also going to cover this up. But I do like to try and spotlight elements of this facility because I think it looks pretty cool just seeing everything running. The only section where I don't have the 1-meter wall all the way around is the section facing the particle accelerator. We want all of that on show, and that's exactly what I've done. I think you could probably cover this bit up if you want with the concrete, but I wouldn't bother. Just a heads up, I've realized we're not actually quite in the right position for the refinery. So this needs to be, we just remove this for a second so I can show you the exact position. We want the refinery, rather than have the output over the edge here, we want to have it so that it's clipping in. So it's only 1 meter out, but it needs to be there. And then we're obviously going to push that in a touch more. I do apologize for fixing that retrospectively, but hopefully that was easy enough to follow and not too late in the build. Anyway, where were we? So we have now done the floor. One thing that I've yet to do here is to place the conveyor wall hole for our plutonium fuel rods. So you want that in that position, the third foundation to the left. And now we're going to place our manufacturer, and this is going to be as close to the refinery as we can get it. We want the output to be pretty much in line with the refinery as well. So we'll place this down, and we should be able to get a, there we go, a conveyor to wrap around the wall. Next, let's add our assemblers. So we're going to place one assembler just above it, and we're going to want to actually bring this back about 2 meters so that it's in the center of this column of foundations. And we're going to place a second assembler directly next to it as well. So you can see this one's going over the edge. At this point, we're going to run a straight conveyor all the way around. So there. This is going to be for the steel pipes, if I remember rightly. Steel beams, sorry. And we can now do the electromagnetic control rods. For this particular assembler, you're going to want to clock it at 37.5. So you're producing 1.5 electromagnetic control rods per minute. And then as for the heat sinks, which are below, you're going to want to set these at 33.33%, 33333, so that we're producing 2.5 heat sinks per minute. And the next thing is that the fun part, we're going to bring these and connect them to here. So for this, we are going to have the lower line here. The idea is that we can then run this all the way around to these. So we're going to place the conveyor pole down first of all, and then we're going to grab our conveyor, make sure that your input is the section that's turning. So output is green, input is the orange, in my circumstance at least. And you're just going to snap this so that the hologram disappears, and that allows you to create this extra tight little conveyor elevator. Now we're going to place that the same height, so we're just going up 1 increment, and then we snap it to the conveyor pole and make sure that it's the output this time. Connect these up, and then we can just connect these together, and we're going to do the exact same system here, but instead of going up 1 increment, we're going to go up 2. Make sure it's just behind that elevator, and then we can connect these up. At this point, we need to bring up the encased plutonium cells up through the floor. So we're going to grab our conveyor floor hole, and it should be in between, if I've placed it correctly, that is, here, in between these 2 inputs. So I'm going to go on a whim and say I've got it right, and we're going to run that around here. I think I mentioned this was for steel beams. We are going to have one for steel beams. It's going to be above this, but we'll do that in a little bit. This one's actually, as I mentioned, the yes, our encased plutonium cells. So they're now going up through there to the middle floor that we're working on now. And next, we can get started on bringing items up. So let's start off in this corner here. We're going to be bringing, first and foremost, from the middle section, our Caterium. We're then going to be bringing up our aluminium. So just make sure that the middle one is facing down through the grid. So this is going to run out in this direction, and then we're going to place our first constructor of the build just there. And this is going to turn the Caterium into quick wire. Remember, we've only got 6 Caterium for this, so it's going to be running at 50%. And then that quick wire is going to run along here to about this point. We'll just leave it there for now, but it's going to head up to the next floor where we're going to use this quick wire to produce the AI limiters. Next, the Caterium ingots, they're going to come up to here, and we're going to run them along to about here. We're going to bring it up, and it's going to be below, so we're going to have to do the next one. It's going to be below this line that we're setting up next, which is going to be our copper. So the copper is going to come up to this point. And we've got a steel here. Before we do this, we are actually going to have to place the next floor because this is actually just under the ceiling height. So I'm going to check over there what the right height is, and then we'll come back to this position. Having just checked back, it's really simple. The next floor is going to be 12 meters high. So it'll be about there. Well, it will be there. And we're going to bring our copper up to this point, and then we can bring our aluminium ingots here, and then our steel is going to run straight across this section over to where we are here. So while we're at it, let's just run this to here. So it's going to come across, and it's going to go up in the third row. So we have our steel going across to the next floor. We have our quick wire here, our copper, which is also going to run around to the next floor from this direction. And then beneath this, we're going to snap our aluminium. So the aluminium ingots are going to run around to about this point. But before we do that, let's quickly set up this section. So for the electromagnetic control rods, we're going to bring both the stators and the AI limiters from the floor above. However, before we move on to the next floor, I wanted to show you specifically the inputs to these assemblers, because it does look a little complicated from above, because we've done a little bit of funky fun here. You probably hate me for this. So for this, we're going to bring the stators and the AI limiters down from the floor above. That's this floor hole, and there should have been one here which I accidentally deleted. This one is for the aluminium alclad sheets, and then the copper sheets are actually going to come down from the floor here. So the important thing with this section is to note that we are bringing the alclad aluminium or aluminum sheets down halfway, and then they're running into another elevator here, which is why we have heaps of elevators, because we're obviously bringing the encased plutonium cells. Finally getting the name right on that section. So now that we're back here, we are going to very quickly just place the next floor, and then we can finish off with this floor by placing everything that we need. So we'll bring the copper around to about here. We'll place the floor hole for it in a moment. We're going to bring the conveyor belt for the aluminium here as well. Next, we'll add our conveyor floor holes. So we're going to have the one there, and there, followed by one here and one there. Is that right? No, we don't need that one. We'll get there eventually. So next, let's add our elevator for this section, and this is going to come down from here. Now we're going to connect these up. Fantastic. All right, so we have done the floor. We're actually going to fill this section in with the same floor that we've done for the rest of it, but this section is going to be done with walkways, should you wish. There is slight clipping in, but you can see that the front is on display. And for this, I have just gone and grabbed the basic wall and filled that in like that, and I think it blends quite nicely. Back to the floor, we're going to now add the aluminium ingot floor hole, which will be here, just into the next corner. And then we're going to place the copper ingots in this section here. I think there's actually one more, isn't there? There's this one, and I think this actually needs to be in this corner. So we're going to just replace this one ever so slightly. Now we're going to grab our floor hole and we will place it just in that corner. Next, I'm going to connect these up really quickly. Now that we have this floor ready, we're going to grab our constructors. Starting off, we will place the first ones just so that they're over the center of the foundation line. And from here, we're going to place a splitter. And this is going to split directly into both of these. And here we're going to have our steel beams being produced at 30% clock speed. So you're producing 4.5 of these per minute. And then this one is going to be set to steel pipes, and that's going to be running at 33.8% clock speed, meaning that we have 6.75 steel pipes going into the next section, which is going to be our assembler. And this one's going to be for the stator. We will place that in the center of this foundation, and we want the stators to head down into this line. So for that, we know we're going to have to be about that far apart. If we do that, yeah, you can see that's perfect. So we will connect this one up, and then we can set these to stators. And this is going to run at 45% clock speed. We're then going to place our next assembler, and you can see how this is now in line. It's directly against this one, and this is going to be producing our AI limiters. These need to run at 30%, and then we're going to need to produce the copper sheets next, and also the wire. But before we do that, let's connect the AI limiters to this section. And we're also going to run this belt all the way around. Yeah. All the way around to this section. And then the idea is that we're going to bring the steel beams down into the manufacturer. Okay, time to look at the copper. So for the copper, we're going to make sure that the constructors are placed over the center point, and you can delete this foundation. You don't have to have it showing if you don't want to. We're going to place another constructor just ahead of that. And we're going to place a splitter facing the wall here, and then we're going to place another splitter directly next to it, coming down into this grid. So this is taking the copper ingots from the floor below, bringing it up, and because we need to go directly into here and the following one, we are using a splitter followed by the two lines. Next, we're going to bring the wire across and up to the stator assembler. This constructor needs to run at 60% clock speed. In front of this, we have the copper sheets. These are going to run at 150% clock speed. We're going to place another splitter directly after it. Ooh, a bit tight. I think we can tuck these in a touch more. We can do the same with this one, just so that they're nicely in line. Grabbing the splitter, make sure to connect it to the constructor. We're going to have the lift on the left output heading directly back to this edge, and it's going to run its way around to here. So we now have the half the copper sheets heading down to the assembler below, and the other half needs to be sent along here to the AI limiters. With that done, we just need to set up our aluminium assembler. The output needs to connect up, and this is going to be producing the aluminium alclad sheets. This is going to be running at 41.7% clock speed. Bit of an odd number, I know. And then gonna run this down. Ooh, I think I've got this off ever so slightly. It doesn't really matter, it's just annoying me that it's not straight. So you may want to move this over by a meter or half a meter. But we'll bring the aluminium ingots up across to there, and then we'll connect this No, I'll probably do something silly, like bring it around like that, so it's not on a weird wonk. Right, everything is now ready to go. You just need to connect it to power. I've run all of my power lines using beams, and my output point is here. Unfortunately, with these blueprints, you can't place a double outlet. So if we go to the inside of the blueprint, you can see that the power nub is there. And then once you've placed it like we have here, we can always upgrade. Oh, you can't upgrade them. That's annoying. Pretty good. Anyway, let's go over the walkway. When it comes to the walkway, all I've done now that everything's connected is run a stairwell up to this floor. And then from here, I've just covered it with our catwalk intersections. In my blueprint, we do go across here and down into that section, but you really don't need to. You can just as easily close this off and call it a day, like so. But it means you can quite easily walk your way throughout most of the build. And then we just need to close all of this off. So I've done walls like that with a little bit of extra detail. And the same with the top section. I've done a wall, and on the other side I've done a wall and a window. But that's it. Nice and simple design. No need to over complicate it. After all, the build is more about easily producing those plutonium fuel rods so that you're recycling the energy rather than producing waste just while you're setting up an even bigger power plant. Anyway, whilst you guys decorate your build, we're going to now walk into here. I'm going to show you a bit more about it once it's first placed, and then how to set it up. So more specifically, deleting the water line, so you know exactly what I mean there. And then you're good to go. I hope you found this helpful. Let's build the blueprint elsewhere and sort out that water. Okay, so we have our uranium waste entering this facility along with all the other resources we need except for the water. Let's sort that out in this situation. So the first thing that you want to do here is to grab a pump. It can just be a Mark 1 from this position, but obviously it depends how high your build is. I am using no power for the sake of this. And this is just going to pump the water up through here, and we're just going to leave it a few moments, but it'll probably be done by the time we get round. And from here we can see this is full, and we want to just check this section. So we just turn this off. This is full. This is now full. We can turn this on. More importantly, we can delete this. So with that deleted, what's going to happen is the water will empty from here, and because this is filled, it will start to drain this way around. But from this section here, the water will be stuck because this isn't letting any water out. So this little pipe section here is going to stay full, and we're going to get the head lift up to that point, which means this naturally will increase its head lift to allow all the water through here. Similar to how a water tower works, except you're not supposed to be able to add more stuff to it. But we will skip that for now. Let's make sure that we are now sending water to the nitrogen or nitric acids blender. You can do this cleanly if you want. Looking forward to that straight mode pipe. And so now you can delete these. You can delete them for all of these if you want. Once you know what's going in and you're feeding it the resources. But that is now going to run for you. And we will check again in a few moments just to make sure that there are no issues. And make sure we see the plutonium fuel rod coming out. So you know that I'm not lying. I just love seeing that through the window. The water is filling up. Just waiting for this to finish. There is still water in this though. I would have expected it to empty by now. Anyway, the point is the water is heading to here. It is still filling its buffer up, so that's fine. It shouldn't actually be this irradiated. We've not actually got any... Ah, okay, so this is the issue here. This is something that I can fix with the blueprint. I think because originally this wall hole was on the outer section, I've moved it forwards. The conveyor lift has just snapped to the conveyor hole rather than the actual conveyor. So from here, at least we know it's running. We can just connect them directly. And there we go. The joy of having a facility that produces the plutonium fuel rods is you can now sync them so you have waste-free energy. The other thing that you could do, if you want, is to use them in your drones, which I'll be covering in a video soon. But guys, I hope you found that useful. If you do want to double your power up with them, remember you can summer sloop the manufacturer as well. But guys, we are going to leave it there. I hope you found this guide useful and you're able to build this yourself. If not, remember you can find our blueprints over on Patreon, which of course is the best way to support the channel. Now, moving forwards, I'd love to know what blueprints you'd like us to do in terms of both one-click factories, but any other aesthetic blueprints you'd like to see on this channel as well, and perhaps we'll do something for you. But guys, again, thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much to all of our incredible supporters on Patreon, without whom we couldn't make this happen. Most notably, our Lunar Eclipse Patrons, Firefless, The Calamity, Ben, Star, and Seeker Kala, as well as our Blood Moon of the Day, which today is Dr. Shotgun. Until next time, as always, ciao for now.